This episode is for you if you're looking for specific tips on how to strengthen your relationship with your manager, move through this end of year process when it comes to evaluations and evaluating your performance in a way that feels good, that transforms fear into confidence, and really makes this process be very empowering for both you and your manager. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Career Coaching with Jessness. I am Jessica, and it is that time of year, isn't it? No, not Michael Bublé and Mariah Carey. I'm talking about the end of year performance reviews. Ah! So, if you are in the thick of year end performance reviews, I understand that it can generate some anxiety and uncertainty. And it's easy to worry about what's going to happen with your manager and if you're going to be judged and if the review is going to be good and yada, yada, yada. But the review is a powerful opportunity. It's a very powerful process if you let it be. And if you allow yourself to play an active role and prepare right for it. And so we're going to go over some tips today on how to do that. I want to also caveat that this topic is top of mind because I am training in my corporate job on this topic a lot. We just did 12 sessions for managers. We're doing some for individual contributors. So it's top of mind for me. I also want to just have a disclaimer that what I share in today's episode is not directly from my company. So these are my own thoughts based on years of being in leadership development, years of being in learning and development and working with people one on one and hearing all the ins and outs, all the fun and horror stories when it comes to performance reviews and performance management. And so this is my personal take and perspective on the process. This has nothing to do and is not associated with my day job. Okay, cool. Got that out of the way. All right. So this episode is for you if you're looking for specific tips on how to strengthen your relationship with your manager, move through this end of year process when it comes to evaluations and evaluating your performance in a way that feels good, that transforms fear into confidence, and really makes this process be very empowering for both you and your manager. All right. So when I was looking up some stats around individual contributors and fears when it comes to year-end reviews, statistics show that performance reviews can be a major source of stress. And so 85% of employees say unfair reviews lead them to consider leaving a job. Leaving a job. 85% of employees say that if they feel their review is unfair, it'll lead them to consider heading on LinkedIn and looking for something new. 60% of employees feel that their managers don't come prepared with meaningful feedback. I'm sorry to say, I can't make your manager come prepared with meaningful feedback. I can't show up at their door and ask, hey, Billy Sue wants to know exactly what they've done great and bad this year, blah, blah, blah. I can't control that, but I can help you prepare and control what's within your control to hopefully make for the best case scenario. So I think a lot of the fear comes from just the unknown. And if you've been around here for, I don't know, 5 seconds, I talk a lot about the unknown. My second book is entirely about a time in my life where I navigated the unknown and it was scary and I went through it and yada, yada. It's called Thank You for Dumping Me, and it's about a huge blindsided breakup I went through. So I am no stranger to the unknown, and neither are you. You have navigated places that have been unknown, situations, experience that have been unknown, and you've moved through it. So I think some of the fear just comes from, I don't know how to navigate this process. I don't know what feedback's going to come up, and I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on my career progression. And that is so valid. I just want to call that out. That's valid. It can be nerve-wracking. There's also this challenge of facing criticism. Feedback is hard. Feedback is uncomfortable. It's not always fun, right? To get feedback from somebody. And it's also what makes feedback hard is when feedback is different from how you see yourself or how you see the situation. And that's where emotions can get brought up, and there can be shock and resistance and anger and yada yada. I think also what brings up some anxiety around this end of year performance conversation stuff is that it's personal. As much as many of the feedback and in conversation will be objective, meaning about what goals were met, what goals were not met, and based on real metrics and outcomes that you can point to. And there is some black and white to it. The bigger, deeper thing happening too is this performance evaluation is tied to my compensation, which is tied to how I pay for the roof over my head or pay for my kids' school, right? So it's deeper, it's big. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of that. I'm going to share in today's episode how you can manage this fear and prepare strategically because you guys know, as a Capricorn gal, I like the practical. I like the step by step. I like the plain, tried and true, non fluff crap. So, first thing that you're going to do, and if you haven't done this year, guess what? You can set yourself up for next year and do this. But the first thing that I want you to do is keep a year round success document. Call it a journal, call it a win sheet, whatever you want to call it. But keep a living, breathing document that you can capture your wins. You can capture those project milestones and positive feedback as it happens. All right. This is your evidence portfolio. And you know what's so great about this? Here's the hack. You don't have to think about it come end of year and be scrambling for all of that information. There's nothing worse and more boring than having to sit down and remember what you did in January of the year. We can't remember what we had for lunch Friday, right? So make it easier on yourself and keep a living, breathing document where you just throw stuff in. It doesn't have to be pretty. You get an ad hoc win or compliment from somebody and you put it in there. You improve a process throughout your workflow, throw it in there, right? I'm talking bullet points with specifics so that you don't have to remember all the specifics. And let's be real, come end of year, if you don't keep something like this, you're not going to remember everything. You're not. And then you're not going to have as well-rounded and as robust of a self-evaluation that you really need. So this is going to help you remember all those specifics and reduces the stress that comes with having to sit down and do it. It kind of reminds me of when someone wants to find a new job and they have to update their resume. It's that, like, those two activities, they live in the same room in my brain, like, don't want to do it, whatever. So I also encourage people to keep a living, breathing resume, right? So that you don't have to sit down and torture yourself and remember all the things you've done. So, and here's the major hack. If you keep this year-round success journal and keep track of all of your wins and project milestones, guess what? When you do want to go find a new job, you can pull from that too. So save it on something that is personal to you so you don't lose it when you go to your next gig. Okay, next tip. Bring concrete examples to the table. One of the ways that you're going to be able to advocate for yourself, because a big part of the year-end review is to celebrate all that you've done and celebrate the impact that you've been able to make at this company. So bring those concrete examples, drop the vague generalities, and really bring some of that storytelling into play. So talk about the contributions that made a clear difference. Talk about meetings and how you've contributed, how you've collaborated across teams, and bring those stories to the table. And that'll help make your case more credible, more grounded. Um, and one of the ways that you can do that too is you can solicit feedback from your peers. Whether your company has a way to do that or not, you should do it regardless. So, say your company does great. Don't, take advantage of that. Take advantage and share the names of people that can share feedback and give specifics on projects you've worked with. These don't have to be people that are on your direct team, right? These people can also be someone you worked on a one off project or a cross functional team member, or maybe a mentor or a senior person that you've shadowed under. If they have insight into the way that you work and your thought process and all of that, they're worth soliciting their feedback for. And that'll give your managers some more well-rounded information and give them more objectivity, right? Some of those clear examples really help to make it clear on what you've done and how you've impacted. So if your company doesn't have a way to do that, or it's not part of that end of year process, you can do that on your own. Simply send out an email and just ask and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this past year and reflecting on my progress and how I've performed. Would you mind answering these 3 questions? Share a highlight from your experience working with me. Share a gap or something that I can improve. And share a piece of advice or whatever it is, even if you just want to have one question, because let's be real, it's a really busy time of year. So maybe you just simply ask, hey, I'm reaching out about the project X that we worked on. Can you share three things that I 3 ways that I contributed to that project?" And then you can help have that add in to what you write up for your manager. Okay, third thing, know your role and your goals. So, part of ending the year is looking back at the stakes we put in the ground in the beginning of the year. And the stakes in the ground are your goals. What did you set out to achieve in the beginning of the year? What are those objectives? And then looking to speak to those. And then, that's half the equation. And then the other half is, where did we set out to achieve and do? And then start to calibrate, all right, where am I now in that process? Did we completely fill it out or finish it out? Do we still have more to do? Is the direction we're taking it spot on? And you can start to calibrate and make a suggestion on what's next, right? So in coupling the look back effect of, here's what we did, here's how far we've come, you can help your manager and be a strategic partner and say, here's what we were able to do on this one objective. Here's where I believe we're at, and here's where I'd like to go. And a big part of that too is then asking yourself, here's where I'd like to go, and here's what I need from you, manager. Maybe you need a certain skill developed, or a resource, or a thought partner, or advice. Get specific. Understand what it is you need from your manager to get better and to grow. That's what they're there for. They're there to help and support. And oftentimes, I think managers, they want to help and support, and maybe they just don't know how. So give them the answers to the test. You know, and because you've been complaining about it to your friends. What do you complain about to your friends about your manager? That's what you need from them. And then you got to, say it in a professional way, right? So, work backwards from that. All right. Last tip I have for you is, and then I've got like a little bonus thing, is prepare thoughtful questions and feedback. Your manager, I guarantee it, is going to say, "What feedback do you have for me?" Or how else can I support you?" Or blah, blah, blah. Right. So this review is a two-way dialogue. You are half the equation. Without you, there is no performance conversation. So show up ready to contribute. At the end of it, if they say, hey, what questions do you have? Don't just say, I'm good. That's like one of my big pet peeves. Even in It's a pet peeve for when I coach people on interview prep as well. If you're in an interview and at the end of the interview, they ask you, what questions do you have for me? And you say none, that's a no no. And if you're like, wait, what? Like, what should I ask? There's an episode on that. So go back and, and check it out, because asking really thoughtful question is a way to hide value, to contain value in a question. Because if you're asking strategic questions that get your manager to think, it's going to do two things. One, they're going to go, wow, okay. They're really putting themselves in the seat of growth, in the seat of what's next, being strategic. And then two, you're going to get some more insight that you didn't have before. And knowledge is power in corporate. If you are at the meeting at the table and you get the insight, if you know the initiative before the initiative is launched, all of these areas are power. You being at and in those conversations and being part of some of that decision making can happen by including yourself, by asking the question. And then you never know what's going to happen. You could ask a question about something. Next thing you know, your manager is saying, hey, Jessica, you had an interest in this. There's actually a Tiger team starting up on it. I'm going to have you join that. Boom. Now you're in another room that you weren't in before. So being thoughtful, answering these questions is big. I would also come prepared with a little bit of feedback for your manager. You have this time to talk, and that can be a really, really good way to just be a little bit vulnerable, share some feedback. Your manager's going to appreciate it because they know that it's hard to give feedback. And that's really where you can start to build a closer relationship with your manager, build that trust. Someone's got to go first. I know that over time, my manager knows that he has said this to me. He has said, I know that you're going to give me feedback if you have it. Why? Because I have. And I always preface it with, hey, this is kind of hard and uncomfortable, but I'd be doing you and me a disservice if I don't say it. And I'm giving you this feedback because I care and because I want to build a relationship where we can say the hard things and just be open. And it builds such a strong foundation of personal respect that is only going to be positive and support you. All right. The other thing that I would say, things are coming to mind, so I'm just keeping going here. The other thing I'd say is if you know of a gap, if you had a miss in your goals or something, because let's be real, we are not perfect. In today's world, life changes all the time. Our goals are going to change. The direction of the expectations are going to change. There are going to be different asks of us throughout the year, which are going to impact our goals. That's not a losing thing. That's table stakes for business. Change happens. Because change happens, our goals are impacted. Because our goals are impacted, we then may not hit all of them. That's not the end of the world. The end of the world is trying to shove that under a rug and not say anything about it. The win in that is I'm going to shine a light on the gap before my manager shines a light on it, and I'm going to come with a solution or a learning point that I had about that thing. So rather than shoving a a gap or a miss in your goals and hoping that you're not going to talk about it with your manager, just talk about it and address it first. Get ahead of it and say, hey, I know on this one goal we missed it by 10%. Here's some reflections I have on that. Here's why I think we missed it. Here's what I think we could be doing better on it. Here's what I plan to initiate from that. That's where it's at. That is where it's at. That type of learning and reflection is so key. Don't pretend it didn't happen because they're going to remember it, right? So get ahead of it, do yourself a favor, point to the thing that's not working, and come with a solution or an idea. And I promise that will always, always pay off. All right. So, next things next, some final tips. When you're working on your evaluation, do not rush the process. You will get annoyed. It will be stressful. You will miss things. You have to be in a place of, this is where the writer in me comes to play. If I'm writing something of meaning, and like if I'm writing the back copy of my book, I can't just sit down and like hammer it out. This is going to be something I sit down with, I look at, I ponder, I think. I give myself the space and time to not rush. When I'm rushing, I never do my best work. So take some time to really prepare for the process and give yourself a few days to iterate on it. That way, you write your first draft, you go away, you look at your living, breathing portfolio, right? Your year round success journal, and make sure you've got everything in there. If you don't have that, then you're going to want to give yourself even more time so that you can write that initial thing. Once you start writing it, as you go about your day, you'll be on a walk or you'll be driving or you'll be in the shower, you'll be like, oh, I didn't add that. So it opens up this channel of remembering your performance. So start the first draft and then allow yourself some days to build it out and allow those additional remembrances to come to mind, those other things that you want to add in. Final tip. You may want to practice with a friend or a trusted colleague, right? Maybe doing a dry run of your performance management conversation will help you. Do it. Practice it. We practice for major speeches. We practice for presentation. Why not practice for a conversation that is we do it once a year, right? So it's okay to practice. So maybe you want to talk through some of the discussion points and do it that way. I find as well, if I just say things out loud and practice reading it aloud, I find new ways to say it, or I notice, oh, I don't want to say it that way. So just if you don't have a trusted friend or colleague that you want to do that with, just at least say it out loud and see how it feels. Third final tip. Enter the review with a growth mindset. Try to see all the feedback that you get as a gift and try to see it as a way to improve and grow. People that are able to take feedback and take it in are going to grow exponentially more than someone that goes into a review with a closed mind and I have nothing to learn here, right? So go into your feedback review with an open mind. Not everything's going to land. That's life. Take what resonates, and what doesn't resonate, let it sink in. Try to look at it from an objective way and see how that goes for you. And then final thing I think is follow up after the review. Thank your manager for their time. You can summarize. If your manager doesn't do this, you should do this to ensure that you're on the same page. But outline, hey, here's what I took away from the conversation. Here's what I'm looking forward to this coming year. And here are some things that I'm going to do to keep the momentum going, right? You take the reins of your career progression and take the reins of your career. Really own that, because that's going to help progress you a heck of a lot more than waiting for someone to push you along. Okay. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope this episode reframes a little bit of how you look at the year-end review process. And I hope that some of this prep can really help navigate moving through the fear and giving you some tangible, practical strategies for what to do and how to approach it. And if you don't do it perfectly, who cares? Who cares? It's totally fine. Do your best. Everyone's doing their best. And just know that part of this process can be growth process, learning more about yourself, discovering areas that you do really well. Who knows? You may find some blind spots that you have, some hidden strengths, right? And so that's always a win. And I wish you the best with this and finishing out the rest of the year. If you have a tip or an insight that you do when it comes to year-end review processes, I want to hear it. Let me know in Instagram, DM me at Hello Jessness, and let me know your hot tip because I'm always down for a hot tip. All right, best of luck. I'll see you on a future episode.